of who we are, what we want, what our vision is, what we're attempting to do. And the argument was that form follows function. So you tell me what you're up to, and we'll try to give you a design of a facility that will make that workable for you. And so we went through that process in November, December. We, of course, come into here by December. And then we wrapped it up sort of in January. And they gave us clear numbers, estimates, what it would cost. Both of them gave us designs and rough sketchings of what it would look like to build on Pettigrew and the cost, and what it would look like to develop this site if we could get it, and the cost. And that all produced the sense of, I really do think that the carriage house needs to be our first option. And the reason we felt that way was because, among other things, the cost, just the sheer cost. Another reason was the facility's already built, and we would be able to use it and have access to it like tonight, right now. And all the other guesstimates as to the building process, whether in stages or as a finished process, would be months out, if not a year and a half out, if it was the Pettigrew model. So what we began to say is, I think this would be less expensive. We think it would certainly be usable right now. And, of course, I don't need to tell you, this facility would be much more beautiful in both the grounds, the setting, and the buildings themselves. So that was how we ended up going in this direction. And we don't know if this is the way that God will give favor to, and it'll end up this way. We just know that that's what brought us to the decision that this seems to make more sense for us. I know this has had some twists and turns in it. And you could say, gosh, did you know what you're doing? Well, we tried to think we knew what we were doing, but we're trying to get there. And it has had some, changes, surprises. Didn't expect that moments. And that's a point. It led me to remembering an article that I had read in a journal that I take, Leadership Journal, and it was about a book that had come out entitled Upside Down. It's written by Megan Art McCarter. And it described an experiment that they did in this model. They were really working with companies and businesses, but an experiment in which they got a collection of different groups together, people together, and they of different types, very different people. And they had engineers, and they had lawyers, and they had business school students, and they had even kindergarten students, if you can believe it. And they began to say, I need you to do something in 18 minutes. And just see what happens with this experiment. I'm going to read it to you because it's quicker that way. They gave every group, whether they were business students or lawyers or engineers or kindergarten students or whatever, 3 things. They gave them 20 pieces of uncooked spaghetti, 1 meter of tape, and 1 piece of string. And they said, I want you to take 18 minutes, and you can construct this any way you want to. But I want to see who can make which group can make the tallest structure that will hold and support the weight of 1 marshmallow. And so that was the challenge, and they had 18 minutes to get it done in, and they went for it. Now, the results that I'm reading here weren't at all surprising. The engineers generally beat the lawyers, who spent too much time arguing over who should be in charge. But I'm literally reading this. But the group that did the best was a surprise. Kindergarten students, even though their design didn't have either the symmetry or the craftsmanship of the engineers' efforts. How did these kids in 18 minutes build a structure that supported a marshmallow that was several inches taller than number 2, the engineers? And there was a couple of things they took away from it. One is they truly weren't worried about failure. They just kind of jumped in and gave it their best shot. The second thing is they were not hampered by assumptions. For example, they were the only group that actually asked for more dry spaghetti when they kept breaking it. The assumption of the other guys, I thought that's all you had. I mean, that's what you gave me. I got to do it. But they said, we keep breaking it. Can we get more? And they kept getting more and doing that. And they were the only group that was able to complete the project, as ugly as it was, with the highest thing and succeed and win it. And what they tended to do is they learned immediately what didn't work, and they discarded immediately what didn't work and moved on to the next effort in the 18 minutes tick-tock time. Jumped out at me in the experiment on the pages of that magazine because I felt that way a little bit in the last 16 months. that we've gone down to a track. We seem to know what we want to try to do, but we have had to think on our feet, make changes, make adjustments, discard some assumptions, drop things that weren't working like we had thought they might work, and move forward. But at the end of the day, we have got a beautiful setting, and we are watching God give it favor. We're far beyond where we were at the Pawleys Island Community Church. In fact, we have a place now which is constantly being asked for. We had Mike Green's crowd asked for it a couple of weeks ago. They're now asking for it again, that it's going to become the place to be. And so it is something we didn't anticipate. We didn't see it coming. We didn't actually think it up. And it's kind of remarkable. Now, that's overview of sort of where we've been and where things stand right now. But I'm going to ask Stu if he will do kind of a teaching on kind of some building blocks that successful churches need and the kind of engine that any successful church plant must have to move forward. And then when he finished giving you this overview, having studied at Fuller Seminary on all these church growth principles, then I want to come back to get back and overview briefly the vision, and then put you into groups, have you discuss it, reflect on it, kick it around, report back, and then I want to wrap it up. So the goal, again, is to A, catch you up and get you on board, B, tell you what's driving us as far as what we're up to and how we're making the decisions that we're making and what we're after. Have you discuss it and tell us what you think or agree or disagree with, where you are with it. Then, again, review the vision that we have, because vision is essential in this type of thing, and money follows vision, and we're getting ready to kick off another campaign to raise the money to maybe buy this thing. And so I want to go through all of this before we go back to the parking lots tonight. And so I'm going to ask Stu if he would come up here and, if he would, give us a brief overview of building blocks that you need to know about and the kind of engine that this place agree with, where you are with it. Then, again, review the vision that we have, because vision is essential in this type of thing, and money follows vision, and we're getting ready to kick off another campaign to raise the money to maybe buy this thing. And so I want to go through all of this before we go back to the parking lots tonight. And so I'm going to ask Stu if he would come up here and, if he would, give us a brief overview of building blocks that you need to know about and the kind of engine that this place is going to need.
Thanks, Chuck. I'd play the guitar for you for a break, but it's a left-handed guitar, so I don't know how to do that. I'm really excited to be here. I didn't know we had so many people show up in the hallway church back there. Hi, Sissy. My goodness, all you folks back there. Anyway, there's a lot of people back there, and then there's a lot of people over here in the heated church. The nice warm church over there. I'm really excited to be here at the Abbey. I had a friend in town Tuesday night. Russ was there, and some folks were talking about Haiti and some synergism and networking. And afterwards, I was just telling them how thrilled I was to be here. I've had the opportunity. I've only worked for two rectors in my whole life, John Guest and Chuck Murphy. Can you imagine that? There was one guy. Yeah, isn't that great? There was one guy in the middle for 25 years, but I couldn't stand him. That was me. He was awful to work for. But I'm really excited to be here. I think God's really at work in our midst, and I just feel like you're family to me. I love working with Chuck and Susan and Graham and Doug and the whole team, and I want to share a couple of things with you that I hope are by way of encouragement to you tonight. But they really are by way of blocking and tackling. Football season is coming up, and as you know, any good coach is going to say, you have to know how to block and tackle, right? You know, throwing deep is great, but you need to know how to block and tackle. Back in the late 80s, I went out to Fuller Seminary to do a doctor of ministry degree in church growth. That's really was the place to be out there in the late 80s. Everybody was out there. And I completed all the courses. I got all A's. You know, I would have graduated summa cum laude, except that in the course of the time, I planted a church. And I didn't have time to write the dissertation. So I spoke with Fuller several times, and I said, could you just come here and see this thing? I mean, isn't this the goal? You know? But some of the professors in academia wanted a paper written, and I never wrote it. So, but I did learn an awful lot in 4 years about what happens in a church. And here's the basic overview here. Donald McGavran started studying what made the healthy churches. There were 300,000 Protestant churches in America. And he was asking the question, why are some of them healthy and why are some not healthy? In fact, I probably need to get some of my notes out here. And he came up with a whole series of reasons why certain churches would be healthy. The analogy that he used was that if you go to the doctor's office yearly to get a physical, the first thing that a doctor does is he assesses your vital signs. He looks at your heart rate and takes your pulse and looks in your mouth and looks in your ears. He's just basically looking at very, very basic things, certain vital signs. But he knows, or she knows, that if there's a problem with one of those certain vital signs, it's time to dig deeper. Because one of those vital signs, if they're not right, can actually hurt you. In fact, if it's not paid attention to, it could kill you. So they developed certain vital signs of healthiness in churches. Now, I want you to understand, if we're going to talk about healthy churches, I want you to understand that what we're talking about right now is not theology, which is my love, which is the study of God, right? And we're not talking ecclesiology, not that you can read this. I can't, when I look up close, I can't spell. You know what I mean. The study of the church. Okay, that's how you worship and children's ministries and student ministries and how you govern yourselves and all that kind of stuff. We're not talking that. What we're talking about is methodology. What's the method of an individual church? And I always have to apologize for that because I like to talk about theology and I like to talk about ecclesiology, but most churches don't think it's spiritual to talk about methodology, about how you do the work of ministry, about what really matters. And what Donald McGavran found out is that if you didn't pay attention to certain blocking and tackling techniques, no matter what kind of spirit you had working in your church, it probably was not going to work. So there are 10 things. I want to go over the first 5 with you tonight. They're very, very basic stuff, and I'll do it very quickly. The first thing in terms of a healthy church, of a vital sign that was needed, number 1, and I sort of want you to check these off, was a leader that had the capability and capacity to lead the church. In fact, they found that of the 300,000 Protestant churches in America today, and we're using Protestant, not Catholic, because it's such a different system, that the pastor was the primary catalyst for church health or church sickness. That most churches in America cannot get past, no church in America cannot get past the senior pastor. And oftentimes those senior pastors don't belong being senior pastors. They belong on multi-staff churches. And so when they get there, a church reaches that ceiling of that individual and they get stuck. So you must have a pastor that has the ability, a leader, a pure leader that has the ability to lead the church. And by lead, that means one who has developed not only the love of the people. The first question a person asks is, do you love us? The second thing they ask is, can we trust you? And the third thing they ask, a congregation asks of its leader, is, now, if we know you love us and we know we can trust you, can you take us somewhere? Can you get us somewhere that we couldn't get to ourselves? Can you do that? I love what Tom Landry, the old coach of the Dallas Cowboys, used to say. My goal is to get 11 grown men to all do what they don't want to do so they can all get where they all want to get. They don't want to do push-ups. They don't want to run laps, but my goal is to get them to do that so they can win a Super Bowl. And that's what a leader does. He gets you somewhere that you can't get to yourself. So I'll just sort of leave that one, since my salary and my job's at stake, I'll just leave that one go. But I can't tell you this, when we met at the Lashcott's house way back when, after the Caledonia Golf and Fish Club days, and you guys said we want to start a church, the first question I asked you is, who's your leader? That's the first. I didn't ask what's your purpose, what's your dreams, who's your leader? Because you don't go anywhere without a leader. That's the first thing that McGavran found is leadership. It was the primary catalyst for growth in a church. And a leader is someone who over time develops, I think, followers through love and trust and the ability to lead. And I can tell you that the right leader at the right time makes all the difference in the world. So that's a leader. You have to have a right leader. The second thing is you have to have the right people. And by that, I mean, This is what gets me so excited about what's going on here. You have to have what he called a strong nucleus group. That is, that you have to have seasoned veterans that have a lot of mileage and a lot of gravitas to them, that are highly trained and are not afraid to overcome obstacles. You know, it's really hard to plant a church with a lot of rookies, to tell you the truth. It really is. You need seasoned veterans. And when I look at you guys, that's what we've got. I mean, it's amazing. You are, if anything, you are seasoned. Well-seasoned veterans. And one of the things that they found out in church growth is that you need, if you try to start a church with the young families, you can do that. But you need what he called at that time the gray hairs to really build the church and pass the baton. You can do it with young families, but it will take you forever because they're peak child rearing, peak career building, peak marriage building, chief financial years are all staring them right in the face. They have no resources, they have no time, they have no energy. They're just surviving. And you know that, those of you with the 3 to 5 kids, you know that. You're just surviving. But we have a great mixture of people here that can really build a church. So you need a strong group of nucleus group of people. I think I'd give us an A. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give us what would you say? 12. Thank you, George. You're complimenting yourself, you know. Third thing that they found you need to have is you needed to have, and this is not any rocket science, but it doesn't happen in churches. You had to have a clearly defined purpose, a vision, a mission. You had to have a calling that came from God that was clearly defined. And the clearer it was, the healthier the church is. Now you think, well, everybody understands that because you've had great leadership. You've been exposed to it. But most churches have no idea where they're headed other than to sort of be a little holy huddle for believers on a Sunday morning. But they have no vision outside of themselves. They have no understanding of their unique reason for existence in the kingdom of God. They have no understanding of what their North Star is, where North is. I remember when McDonald's started. Remember what their whole thing was? All they wanted to do was make a quick, cheap hamburger. In fact, you know how much the original McDonald's hamburger cost? 15 cents. 18 cents. Depends on where you were. Yeah, it was that simple. Now, Chuck's been explaining to us over and over and over again the mission, the image, the dream, the values of this Abbey and what it can be, of the 4 bench, legs of the bench, of our children's ministry, our worship, our small groups, our outreach. We have a clearly defined reason for existence. In fact, I think we could make a strong case that God did call us into existence. He did. So I love this purpose part. Number 4, you have to have an engine. Sooner or later, the quicker the better. What does an engine on a train do? Pulls the train. It pulls what? The cars. The cars are your youth ministry, your children's ministry, your small groups, your fellowship, all of the things, the celebration, the congregation that a church does. Something has to pull that. The engine is the worship space. Sooner or later, you've got to gather together in a worship space that is in a compelling, attractive place for the people that you would like to reach. Now, this is not just, theories. This is what Donald McGavran discovered looking at 300,000 Protestant churches in America. You need to be in the right place for the people that you want to reach. Let me give you a for instance. Coming from Pittsburgh. In Pittsburgh, we have Old First Presbyterian Church. It's so old, I don't know. George Washington probably worshiped there. Right next to it is Trinity Cathedral, the Episcopal Cathedral. Both of those churches were beacons of the church in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. They're virtually empty today. They are magnificent facilities, but they're empty. Why? Because the people changed that were attracted to them, and they ended up being the wrong kind of church facility in the wrong place. First Pres has meeting rooms, conference rooms. They even have bowling alleys in the basement. You could used to be able to go to church and then go bowling after church. That's Presbyterians, they'll do anything to get people to come to church. But today they have no parking. Nobody wants to take their kids in there because it's not a safe environment. Nobody wants to hang around. There's no really nice restaurants to go to. So nobody goes to church there. It's the right idea, but now it's in the wrong place with the wrong image to it. So what does it do? This magnificent facility is a food bank. It's a place for the homeless. It serves food, a hot meal every night. That's about it. So location and the compelling attractiveness of your facility for the people you would like to reach is absolutely critical. Are you getting this? Now here's what McGavran found out that was really interesting to me, and I fought kicking and shoving. He said he found out, like it or not, he found out that people are most likely to become believers with people most like themselves. That is, that we're most likely to reach people most like ourselves because we have a connection with them. We have a chemistry. We have a compatibility. We speak the same language. So the old model of going to Africa and asking the Africans to dress like the English people didn't work anymore. When you go to Africa as a missionary, you learn their language. You dress like them. You learn their customs. You learn their time schedule. You learn their rhythms. You become like them. You don't change the gospel, but you change the presentation of how it is so that the people can understand it. So what's critical to me when I come here to Pawleys Island is I'm saying, okay, who are we? And what kind of people are we most likely to reach? People like ourselves. What do people like ourselves like? The same things we like. Where do they like to go? The same places we like to go. What kind of image do they like to have about themselves? Because that culture out there today, folks, is highly image conscious. They like the same kind of image we like to have. It's just a fact of life. We're most likely to reach people that want to come where we are. That want to come to a place they feel safe and secure and at home and excited and compelling. That's what gets me so excited about this place. I mean, I watch people come in here. We had that open house for the community, and people's eyes just lit up when they came in here. They started telling all the stories to each other about this place. I told you about the one story of the couple that fell in love right back here in our little chapel. And they said, do you mind if we go back there? I took them back, and they said, would you mind leaving us alone for a little bit? They fell in love here. They don't know Jesus, but they love this place. It has a history to it. It has an environment to it. It has a location to it. And location is, one of the other things that McGavran found is if the ideal place that you would build a church, you know where it would be? In the center of the school district. Because the young families today spend all of their time in their SUVs. They socialize together. They talk on the phones together. They have dinner together in their cars today. And if you can locate yourself between the middle school or the grade school and the high school, boy, do you cut out the travel time and you create some accessibility for young families. It's amazing once you sort of get into their loop. So the engine, which is really all about what McGavran called celebration, is absolutely crucial. That's worship. As Chuck often says, if it doesn't happen in worship, it doesn't happen. I mean, from my way of thinking, the sooner we get our place here that people love to come to, and the sooner we get that engine, a worship center where we can all gather together in one place, we are going to grow like crazy. Because churches don't grow like this. If this is the continuum, churches don't grow like this. A little, a family at a time, a month at a time. They grow like this. They grow in steps. They grow in plateaus. And when you open new facilities or when you open new worship centers, you get this huge boost of people coming to find out what you're all about and see what happens. And then you do that, and then you have some special days, and there's Christmas, and you get a big boost. And then you do this Easter egg hunt. And, and if you've got a place where people can come together, you have another whole other means of growth, of all these side doors that people take into the church. So I ask ourselves now, how are we doing with the engine? Because that'll be a major milestone for me. And finally, the last thing I guess I want to bring before you is that they found that really healthy churches, again, I'm not talking about ministries now. We could talk about small groups, community groups, how you do that, missional stuff, relational evangelism, invitational event, but we're talking now about some blocking and tackling. They found that churches really had adequate resources to fund their ministries and their facilities. Absolutely critical. You can't go anywhere without resources. As my theology professor used to say to me, well, I'm going to teach you a whole semester of great theology, but sooner or later somebody's going to have to pay the light bill in this building. It's a reality. And if you give us $5 here at the Abbey, I know something about Abbey people. They'll turn that into 10. It will not be misused. It will be multiplied. And at some point, the financial question today has to be addressed not at a discretional giving level, but it has to be addressed at a sacrificial level for churches to be built in America today, in our economy, what's happened to us. Something has to go in our lives for churches to be built when it comes to making the financial resources to make these kinds of things happen. And I have found that the last commitment that people generally make to Jesus is that financial commitment. They make a commitment to come to church, get involved in a small group, worship regularly, serve in the nursery. That's a big one. Do all, but man, making that financial commitment, that is the last and greatest commitment that's made. It is the sacrificial one. And maybe we'll be talking about that at some point. So when I go out and talk to churches that are planting churches, they ask me, what 5 things do we need to start with? I say, well, given all the spiritual stuff, do you have a leader? You have a strong nucleus group, clearly defined purpose? Are you working on getting, what I say to them is you need to secure your engine, your property, and your worship facility as quickly as possible, and you need to find some people that can provide the resources for that to happen. Okay? So, do with that what you want. I'll get back into a spiritual mode Sunday and preaching and stuff. I hope you don't mind us doing some of this blocking and tackling stuff, but I hope it is affirming to you that we have 3 really powerful ingredients in place that just about any church would love to have. And now it's time to work on these 2, the engine and the resources. So I'll turn things back to Chuck.
Thank you, Steve. When you were studying it, you should be doing this for me here. This is exactly what we needed to hear. Excellent. I said a minute ago, one of the things I want to do is to talk about, before I break you into groups, talk a little bit about our vision and what we're up to in that sense of the word, because I think it's really important. And those of you that have been around me for the last 20-something years know that when I use the word vision, which is a greatly overused word, I'm really talking about that preferred future, what it is that we think it would be our preferred future. And I'm also thinking about something that is a unique component to us. It's unique. It's a can you hear me? It is unique. It is not only preferred for us, but it is unique in many ways. And it sets us apart. It's something that differentiates us. And so when we talk about the vision, I don't want us to just hear the word, I think I know what that means. I really want us to think about it in terms of what we're all about and what we're doing that's unique and different and preferred. And when we get into groups in a minute, I'm going to really want you to kick that around a little bit. Some of the things that we have said we've used phrase that I want you to understand. One is this ancient future phrase. I've told you I got it from Robert Weber years ago. Used to teach it up in Chicago, and he's now gone and dead, but he wrote a number of books that were really great. And what he was trying to say is your road to the future is along a path through the past. And so he was trying to identify what young people in their 20s and 30s are looking for, and they're not just looking for the church of what's happening now. They actually, again and again, this was a big part of what he was teaching at Wheaton and then later at another college he was teaching him, but again and again what they were looking for are roots. particularly the 20 and 30-somethings who sadly didn't have the kind of upbringing and roots and stability that they might have hoped for. Many, many times their parents were divorced. When they weren't divorced, they were working all day and you didn't see them. They didn't have a sense of community. They didn't really have a sense of rootedness. And so that ancient future became really important to them. And it was something that jumped out for Weber in his conversations with young people, what they're really looking for. And so what is the past that you go through on the way to the future? I believe, and some of this stuff I remember getting from Terry Fulham years ago, that what part of that past is an apostolic faith and an apostolic witness and an apostolic power and an apostolic experience, so that the stuff you see in the book of Acts gets brought into the present. And we say, yeah, that's what we do. That's been my experience. That's been my faith. That's been my witness. That's been my power that God has given and rested upon me. And so we end up stepping back from it and saying, now that brings the Acts of the Apostles up to the 21st century. So the road through the past includes, of course, our Celtic language, our sort of ancient trappings, our creeds and scriptures and those, but it also has that apostolic component, whether it's faith, witness, power, experience, all of those components, and we want that here. That's what we want here. The second thing we want is we want to create an environment that would become a teaching and retreat center. We want it to be the kind, and of course I think of this place, what a retreat center this would be, but we become a place where people really do come and they meet with the Lord, they experience His presence, they are taught and taught and taught. One of my joys in having someone like Stu Babing here is this teaching, extraordinary teaching ministry is brought into our community of faith week after week after week. And I think a lot of people would want to hear this and learn this and experience this. And I also think they would enjoy a time set apart, even if for a day or two, for a retreat. And they would like to know how you meet God, how you experience the power of God, and experience the things you read about in the New Testament. So this ancient future thing is maybe a clever phrase by Robert Weber, but it means something to me. I think it is what we were about in my previous life. When we got the Acts circle out and went through the chapter 2, that was bring that New Testament right up to the present. That's what we want to do. And we believe that God is glorified in that, and we believe that people are blessed in that. And so that's what we want as well. And we would love to be sort of an environment where, I've played with a bunch of these E's before, but you'll remember, where we explain the faith and we expect the presence and the reality of God, where we explore aspects of our faith with one another in small groups and in settings where we're safe and it's safe to explore, and where we experience, wow, the presence of God, and where we ultimately expand what we've received, freely give, out beyond us into other parts. And so all of that is kind of a rhythm that I see for us, and it's going to mean a lot, not only to those that are presently in the Abbey, but to those that will join the Abbey and be a part of the Abbey as we go forward. Stu referenced the bench, but I think those are building blocks. Sunday morning experience, children, small groups, outreach, that type of thing, whether it's Graham's work or whether it's what we're talking about doing in Haiti now, wherever you go where you make an imprint beyond the borders of your local congregation. And we want to do it with those three streams of the scriptures and the sacraments and the Spirit. And put all that stuff together, and we say, now that, in my judgment, is a compelling picture of a preferred future. And it is something that will draw people to the dance, because it's something that will mean a differentiating experience from your basic church in the Pawleys Island community. That's my opinion. So what are the next steps? The next steps would be, we are hoping to buy this carriage house. And we have already put down one offer, which was summarily rejected. And then we put down a second offering, which was something that the owner and I talked over, and he agreed that that would work for him. We haven't yet heard back from him, but the idea would be to buy this facility and then we would be able to have a setting for all that we've talked about, I've talked about, Stu's talked about. And we actually think it makes sense. Because those of you that have the telephones and the calculators, just do the math. If you're talking about 12,000 square feet at even $150 a square foot, the carriage house would be more like $400 a square foot. The All Saints Sanctuary was $400 a square foot. But even at $150 a square foot, it'd be $1,800,000 to build 12,000 square feet anywhere at $150 a square foot. And then, of course, in the example of the carriage house, you get the lot thrown in too, free, and with several attractive trees. And so, what we're thinking to ourselves, this could be phenomenal if we could get it. So, because what you would end up with is you get something that's worth $400 a square foot, something that comes with a lot as well. The lot its own, 3.6 or 7 acres, and we have something we can use right this minute. And so for all those kinds of reasons, that's the direction that the vestry has taken. And the challenge, of course, is to raise the money over the next 6 weeks, because should this guy accept our offer, the next small thing that we have to do is have the money to give it to him, which we don't yet have. So we've been praying, we've been thinking. I would tell you that I've had conversations with 2 people, and those 2 people have pledged $1.3 million already. So that's a serious jump. But you need to know. But you need to know that the larger of those 2 pledges is a matching pledge. And the person that is giving that is saying, I need you to step to the table and the plate as well. So if you can find $500,000, then I'll give $500,000. If you can find $1 million, then I'll give $1 million. And that way we'll get where we want to go. So that's the challenge that we're facing right now. This is, I think, number 7 of our parish sort of leadership gatherings. And I would want you to hear that and know that. Now, what I want you to do now is break into some groups with some questions for discussion, which George and Stu will help me distribute. I have every confidence. And the way what I want you to do is just kick this around. If it's true that the vision is that important, it's that unique thing that we're called to do and to be, and if it's true that there are certain building blocks that will enable us to move forward with success, and if it's true that this differentiating, unique thing that God seems to have called us to do has been placed upon us, then I want to get your reactions and responses and opinions about all of that. And so the questions that you have here are should take not very long. It's only basically 2 sets of questions. Number 1, with reference to the building blocks. Do you agree that these building blocks are, in fact, must-have essentials for us? Yes, no, or maybe. It can't take forever to answer that one. Number 2, are you confident that we can build on what we presently do have and get what we know we still need? And you'll have an opinion about that. And then 3rd block under number 1, are you, as you apply all of this to the Abbey, what gives you the greatest sense of joy and thanksgiving with where we are right now? And then the second one, dealing with the vision. Look at the vision and then answer those 2 questions. Do you agree that there is an actual need in this Pawleys Island community for this kind of vision? And in what ways are you actually thankful to have been drawn into this by God in the planning of the church? And also I want you to share it and discuss this together and then report it back, and we'll have a sense of the larger mind of the group. We've done this every time. I would like to do it one more time. So, this type of thing, what God has called us into. And a great way to do that, as we do and teach in Bible studies all the time, is through small group discussion. I have this deep belief that God speaks to His people through His people. And so if we listen to one another, not just the people that are up in front with the microphone, but to one another, we usually get a sense from the Lord where He's leading us, what He's doing with us, what seems to feel right, what seems to be best. And so we've done it 7 times now for that reason. What I would like to start with is basically the first set of questions had to do with checking in about the building blocks. Stu laid out those building blocks for you because I'd like you to have them to take home so you can put them on the coffee table and look at them again. I typed up the stuff I either knew he was going to say or thought he would say and give it more thought. It may not be absolutely perfect, but it's close to it. And the building blocks, are the leadership, strong leadership, compelling purpose and vision, attractive facilities, the financial resources, and that driving engine. And I wanted you guys to reflect on that. And so group number one, and then I'm going to go real quick. It shouldn't take a long time. Whoever's the first one to reflect on the I'm going to ask you to answer all three questions at the same time on number one, and then I'll move to number two. Who's reporting back for number one? Okay, Kathy, would you mind holding the microphone because nobody will hear you? And here's the question. Do you agree that these building blocks are in fact must-have essentials for us if we're going to move forward in this study?
Everybody was unanimous, yes.
So that was a clear one, okay? Are you confident that we can build on what we have already and therefore get ultimately what we know and think we still need?
There was some doubt, but I think more or less it was confident.
So your group was fairly confident that we can build on this. We may not have all the building blocks in place, but we can get most of them and get them moved forward. Okay, the third question is as you apply all of this to the Abbey, what gives you a great sense of joy or thanksgiving, or what would, on a feeling level, which is not something I do a lot, but on a feeling level, what were the things that gave you a sense of joy and thanksgiving?
We were being fed every Sunday, that we got an education, that we had great pastoral care, a sense of community and expectancy of God's work.
Good. Who's doing number two? We'll see if you can top that. Who's reporting for number two? Ann. I'm going to interview you the same way. Turn this way, people can see you better. But anyway, number one, would your group agree that the building blocks are must-haves?
Unanimous, yes.
Okay, good. Number two, can we build on what we got and get what we still lack?
Again, yes.
Everybody said
Everybody, yes.
You go, girl. I'm sorry. What gave your group on a feeling level the greatest sense of joy and thanksgiving and kind of where we are right now, where we found ourselves?
To be in a group that was unanimous.
Now that's a novelty.
We hadn't been there a while.
Okay. Well, that's good. All right.
No, actually, we said the way God put it all together, your being available, Stu being available, the way we found the place, by Angie riding a bicycle around, just all the things that God put together. We were just thankful for that, and we just want to celebrate that.
Well, you do sense that you're riding away where God's in charge. It's a wonderful feeling. It really is. Group number three. I'm going to ask you the same three questions. Mike Keith, just do it your way.
Well, everybody agreed with number one. Number two is, what was the question again?
The question was, do you think we can build on what we
Yes.
have and get what we know we don't yet have?
There was some concern, but primarily as a majority, yes. And then there was a fascination with what this building can become. Grateful for leadership and for our church family. They love the enduring vision, and it's far beyond Pawleys insofar as outreach and people who visit, people who come. They take that back with them, not just the setting of the teaching, but we were blessed to feel like we have that in place.
Excellent. Okay, that was three. Group number four, who's reading? Who's doing? Barbara, you come forward.
I love this job.
There you go. Same three questions, Barbara. Did your group agree that those building blocks are must-have essentials?
Absolutely, 100%.
Oh, now, when you looked at, were you confident that we can build toward what we don't yet have on what we already have?
Yes, because you got a group of people here who want to do it.
Yep. And that helps. Question number three, when you apply all of this on a feeling level, what seemed to give your group the greatest sense of joy or thanksgiving to be in this work right now?
There were like two levels, the younger people and us whiteheads. That the younger people are impressed and feel that the older ones are doing a good job of some mentoring. And the older folks felt that they get up and come to church because they want to, can't wait to get here because they love everybody. The unity is there and they're just not coming because they have to, they want to and can't wait. How about that?
I love it. Have you confessed to everybody that you and Dave are getting ready to move?
Yeah.
Okay, group number five. Who's doing that? Clint. Run us through your three questions. Give us a sense of your crowd.
Question number one, unanimous, yes. We're excited. We already have 3 of these traits in place. Number two, most of it kind of led to the engine. As which we don't have, but just excited that we feel like we have the opportunity and to grow here. And number 3, joy and thanksgiving was mostly in the people and the camaraderie amongst everybody, and we're in such an inviting place, and the teachings and leadership.
All right, well, good enough. That you were group number 5, is that right?
That's right.
Group number 6. Yeah. What was the mind of your group?
Yes. Unanimous. Okay.
Building blocks, you agree we got to have them?
Yeah. And we're very confident that we can build on this and what we need to do to grow. And then we're most thankful for the holding together, the staying together, this group of people who worship together for years, the leadership, double blessed with you and Stu. And we're thankful for the generous givers that have made this possible, what we've come so far and where we're getting ready to go.
Excellent, excellent. All right, 7. Who's 7? Come up here, Graham.
Yes, sir.
Give us the mind of your group.
The mind of our group was yes.
Yes to the building blocks?
Yes to the building blocks, absolutely.
Yes, we can make it to what we don't have?
Absolutely. Holy Spirit's going and rocking. The greatest sense of Thanksgiving is our leadership, the family, and the teaching.
Excellent.
And me. Hey, you're a part of one of those 4 legs. We know that.
And group number 8, the last group, who's the 8? Okay, come up here. Is it Dave? Yeah. Yes, look at that. Energy. All right, what was the mind of your group with reference to the building blocks? Are they got to have them?
We agreed. We said they had to have them. If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there.
Right.
The second question really came down to, the confidence came down to, we have the leadership and we have the graveyards, the experience to get us there. They've done it before, they do it again, so we're fine there. And the last one was, I think, again, we're most grateful for the leadership, the relationship with God and that we have each day. However, our group did have some issues, and one was transparency was brought up. Being, what are we going to do with, and not to be answered now, but what are we going to do with the Pettigrew property? What do you do with a church behind a gated community was brought up. And the last one was just, people wanted to know what the building plan was. What are we going with? So those are the 3.
And I have to say that we all want to know what the building plan is. That's a good question. And so thank you. Now I'm going to go to the second set of questions with reference to the vision. It's really just 2 questions. Group number 1, Kathy, I guess that would be you. Do you agree that there's an actual need in Pawleys Island for this kind of vision?
The answer was definitely yes.
Okay. Well, in what ways are you thankful to have been drawn into this thing? Because it is a work.
And we go right back to where we were before, the education, the pastoral care, the community, and the expectancy of God taking care.
Okay. So group number 1 says there is a need. This is just an extra one more church. And grateful for some identifiable things. Dan, how would you answer those?
Number 1, we were unanimous again. And then in our thankfulness, we were actually thankful for a new purpose later in life. And we were thankful that God had given the vision and a rebirth of what so many people have a desire to see happen in this community of ours.
God is in the business of redemption. He may not stop everything that's ugly that happens, but He sure is good at redeeming. Group number 3, Pete.
Yeah, when you mentioned it is Pawleys, but our group is more the belief that it's more outreaching, more far-reaching than just Pawleys Island, but insofar as that was their thoughts anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I think what was the other part of that you wanted
The
to
second question, do you think there's actually a need for this kind of vision in the Pawleys Island community?
That's why I said that there's a need, and I think that it's also more.
Yeah, I'm hoping people come in from all over the place. And then the second question, though, in what ways are you actually thankful to have been drawn into this new work? Because it is work, and people get tired.
Well, there's an excitement with the leadership and the family. Everything. There's an excitement. So there's an energy.
Excellent. Group 3, 4. That would be group 4. Here you come again, Barbara. This way get exercise this way. The first question, it was the mind of your group that there is a need for what we're up to.
Absolutely.
And then the second one was, did people seem to be on a feeling level glad to have been drawn into the dance or tired?
I don't think they're tired. I think they're ready to go. I underline what Keith just said. And even though I'm going to be living in a different location, I'm still attached to this place. Thank you to whoever does the recordings.
You will be that.
But I think we didn't do as much on that question, but I think they all agree that the building blocks are in place. Let's go for it.
Gotcha. And it's not a 10-hour commute. I've told you, it's not bad. All right, Clint. This would be group number, I think you're what, like 6 or 5? 6, 5.
Question 1, yes.
There is a need for something like
yes,
this.
and a lot of excitement to that. And then thankfulness it was kind of just a new awakening for most everybody. And the seasoned members were excited to see, having a bunch of young people in the church now and the renewed teachings that have been missed for so long.
But this is helpful to me, and I think to Stu, to hear this, because there is something that we chose not to touch on, and it's fatigue. And there's a fatigue factor in planning a church. And after 17 months nearly, my question was, are the troops getting tired? And so this is very helpful to me. All right, Beth, are you group number like 6?
Okay, yes, there's definitely a need. Great opportunity for expansion to differentiate ourselves in this community and be an Abbey of action, not pew sitters. And we're thankful for our enthusiasm and that God has used our hardship for good.
He has brought some redemption to this thing. All right, group number, there you go, Brad. Give us the mind of your group.
The mind of the group was that, where else are you going to go?
Thank you. Group number 8.
And the next question is about this whole new work. What's so awesome is that you see a church that's actually really reaching out on a personal level, not just talking about it or whatever. It's not just a club of people here, and it's really growing together, and we got great experience.
Again, grateful to hear that it's not a huge fatigue factor setting in. All right, Dave.
Okay. I think for the first one, it was yes. For the growth of the church, we felt we needed to bring in younger folks, but we had a caveat with that: is do not forget to appreciate those that have heard your experience in the group. And the second question was yes. We didn't get a lot of time on it when Sonny said, "Hey, it's our responsibility to tell somebody about our church every day."
Excellent. Last group is group 8.
That was me.
8. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I've got the mind of it. So inevitably, what I heard was what you heard, and it's helpful. I mean, I was wondering with those questions, how many buts are we going to have? Yeah, but, and what I heard was a lot of people are not fatigued. People are ready to move on. There is a need for what we're doing. It's not redundant. One thing Stu and I have talked about repeatedly is there are so many good churches in this community. They just are. And so it's not a redundant thing. It is a different, unique, amazing, and unusual vision. And there's a lot of energy to do it. And I'm very grateful because you need to check the pulse, that is vital signs, after about 16, 17 months and see kind of where we stand and what's going on. Now what we're doing, where I want to go next is, I want us to start thinking and praying about finding the money for this thing. So the dream will be that we have made an offer. I have heard from our kind of anchor realtor, Martin Phillips, that the offer has been pretty well received. Martin's here. If I'm not speaking accurately, I want him to correct me, but we have not gotten a definitive answer yet, but it was pretty well received offer, and we should hear something in the foreseeable future. Now what that will do is that will trip us into the need to raise some serious money in order to go to the bank and get this thing and close the deal. And so once again, the issue of, I believe Stu's right, sacrificial giving is going to come to the plate. We need to think what we can do. I'm grateful that the first 2 pledges are $1.2 million, but I know that we really need at least another $1 million. And we won't get the first $1 million if we don't have a matching $1 million. So I need us to go back and really begin the process of praying to consider what we could do to make it happen. I think it's easier with the kind of responses that I just heard. If there were not those kinds of responses, in the sense, if there was not a real and genuine buy-in to the vision or the purpose or even the need for the Abbey in the 21st century Pawleys Island, then I think it would be much more difficult to move forward with buying something. But because of what I've heard, I'm optimistic that we can move forward. And so I want you guys to go back and really say your prayers over what you will be able to put into a 3-year giving campaign so that I can go down to the bank and get people to give us what we need to make this work. And it's just that simple. And there's like a 6-week time frame. And we have to make some decisions. And I know money is always the crunch. As Stu said, it is the last thing that most people really kind of embrace. That's why Jesus says, where your treasure is, there will your heart be. It really matters. And that's why 1/3 of the parables dealt with stewardship. And the 6 of the recorded words in the Gospels dealt with stewardship. It goes to the heart so much. But I believe with what we want to do, or what we can do, or what God has called us to do, if we can get the resources that we need, then we will be able to watch something really phenomenal start to happen in this next decade. And it just requires that willingness to deal with the most difficult of things, the subject of money. Years ago, I heard a story, and I kind of liked it, about the guy that was dying. He wasn't rich, but he wasn't poor. And he wasn't at all sure whether or not, I don't know, maybe you can take it with you? Or what if you could take it with you? And so he called his 3 closest friends to him, and he cashed out and got $100,000 and put it in 3 envelopes. Some of you may remember this. And he gave it to each of his 3 friends and said, I'm getting ready to die now. And what I would like for you to do is I would like each of you, he didn't trust any one of them enough to give them the whole thing. He's counting his heads and his bets. I want you to put the money in my pocket in the casket before they shut it. And if I need it, I'll have it. And if I'm wrong, so what? And so the funeral came. There were 3 people. It was a doctor, a banker, and a priest. And they came, and the whole congregation watched the doctor go forward and tuck an envelope in his coat pocket. And then the banker tucked an envelope. Then the priest tucked an envelope. And they all went to lunch afterwards. And they got to talking about Fred. And he's an amazing character. But the conscience had started to hurt. So what you had was, first of all, the doctor said, look, I live with life and death. I actually know for a fact that when you die, you die. And I actually need a new pier for my lake house. So I took out $25,000 and put on a new dock. But I put the rest in Fred's coat pocket, which pricked the conscience of the banker. And he said, look, I deal with money every day. And I know for a fact that putting $100,000 in a coffin is not going to generate any new increase. It's not going to earn or produce more money. It was crazy. And I need a new car. So I picked out $40,000 to get a car that I really wanted, which made the priest feel, So he said, look, I live and deal with right and wrong all the time. So what I did was I put the entire $100,000 in my checkbook. But, I want you to hear this, but I wrote a personal check to Fred. And I tucked it in his coat pocket. And he can draw on that anytime he wants. Now, there is a point to this. The obvious point is that we have a hard time letting go of money, and when we have an opportunity to get money, we're inclined to grab it. But the other side of the point is we really cannot take it with us. It's just a fact. And so if we know that, we can start saying, well, do I want, my second point, do I want to invest in something that I believe, because of the building blocks that we've just kicked around, and because of the vision that we have just shared and think it is needed in this community, am I prepared to invest, even when it hurts, in something that will bless a generation of people yet to come? And that really is the fork in the road for all of us. Because if we can't do it, We can't do it. But I believe that we can do it. But it's going to take all of us saying, I'm going to give more than I wanted to, and I'm going to do more than I thought I could. But I do believe it is investing in something that God has sort of orchestrated, drawn us all into this dance. Investing in something that will bless a generation to come, generations to come. So, I want you to think and pray about it. Tonight is in some ways sort of a kickoff to a campaign that we only have 6 weeks to raise. And I know that everybody does what they want to do, and certainly everybody in this room will do what they want to do. But my prayer is that the Holy Spirit will nudge and stir all of us to want to invest in this vision that we all embraced and give to these building blocks that we all think are essential, including the facilities, so that we really do have the engine that will take the Abbey to a whole nother platform, another level. I believe if we blow out this kitchen and see 200 and something people in there, that this church will have 400 people in a next belch. It will happen really quickly because people will say, wow, I kind of like that place. Margaret told me when she went to Greenskeeper 2 days ago, the person that decided to do the flowers with said, I cannot believe you guys at the carriage house. How did you ever pull that off? It's a long story. The guy didn't want to know that. But anyway, the point is I cannot believe that it is so beautiful. Stu was telling me he brought in a friend from Pittsburgh to this place a few days ago, and he said it's just breathtaking. Now, what if we actually could get this and think about the setting, the retreat, the conference center, all of the things that we believe God wants us to do, and now's the time to say, okay, I'm going to do what I can do. And so that's where I'll leave it. I'm going to close with prayer. I'm going to ask you to really give thought to this, because we are really at that fork in the road. We'll either, by God's grace, be able to take the next step, or we'll start to get stuck. And that's just a fact. Let us pray. Our Father and our God, we do thank you for the level of consensus that you've given this group that came out, that is gathered. We thank you for what we already recognize as your sovereign hand on us, assembling the team, drawing the people together, lay and ordained, giving us the vision, the thing that we want to do and believe is needed, and this discovery of this place that's kind of surprising, amazing. We do pray, Lord, that you'll continue to carry us so that we will be able to take this and go to the next level. I ask you to move with your Spirit in the hearts of everyone in this church so that this can become the reality for the next chapter. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Go in peace. The love and serve the Lord. Love you all.